You're watching the SEGADriven YouTube channel, and in this video we're taking a look at the version 0.6.1 release of Sonic Spectre, developed by TheBearBridge. Now, we previously looked at Sonic Spectre back at Sage 2023 with the 0.4 version, but an updated release dropped during Christmas Sage of that year, and we unfortunately never got around to it. This version 0.6.1 release now features 6 complete zones to play through, and 3 playable characters to choose from. That's a hell of a lot of game for a demo release, and as a result I think you really need to try this game for yourself, just to see how accomplished and substantial Sonic Spectre is, even at this stage of development. Sonic Spectre is a traditional 16-bit style Sonic game in that you run around 2D stages using a combination of precise platforming, momentum and speed. The game is heavily influenced by the work of Lake Feppard and features these large, detailed stages full of custom artwork. The game is constantly trying to wow you with the amount of stuff on screen at any time, and there's often these huge set pieces that really showcase how visually thrilling 2D Sonic can still be. Every character plays exactly how you'd expect them to in a classic Sonic game, and Sonic is also able to use a super peel out and drop dash along with his standard rolling and spin dashing. The stage designs are frequently excellent and show a great balance between precision platforming and speedy roller coaster sections. It's everything I want from a classic style 2D Sonic game, but with the added benefit of not being limited to a 16-bit colour palette, having a wider view of the action thanks to its widescreen display, and also having these wonderful third act boss stages where you have to scale these massive contraptions to locate the weak spot near the top of the machines. There's so much creativity in the bosses alone that you actually look forward to them, which is not something I can even say for a lot of classic Sonic bosses. You also get sub-bosses in the form of various Black Arms aliens that normally show up near the end of Act 2, and despite the visual contrast, they do feel like they're melded into the game's world and story pretty successfully. I really like the sense of place that Sonic Spectre has, as you can see everything on a world map, and the transitions between stages accurately portray you moving from one area to the next, giving the whole game a sort of continuity that I really enjoy. These aren't just random stages plopped next to each other with no real thought. They're actual places that exist in the world they've created, and they all feel like they serve a purpose. Sonic Spectre is such a genuinely well-made game that it's such a shame that some of the visual elements kind of let the side down. We previously criticised the game for having artwork that becomes difficult to discern, and bar some minor changes, that is still the case in this release. The stage geometry, foreground and background elements are so busy and so similarly coloured that it can be a bit confusing to look at. There are lots of full-screen environmental effects that also become distracting, like rippling water, sunbursts, and even darkness that washes out a lot of the colour. It seems like such a real shame that you go to all this effort to draw so much custom artwork, only to bury it behind an ugly graphical filter. I'd really like to see these removed or pared back so they're not so distracting. There's also some inconsistency with the objects that becomes a little frustrating. Windy Wood Zone has these massive fans that can either be background objects, platforms or hazards, and they all look so similar that it's very difficult to tell whether you can safely land on them or take damage from them. Maybe do something as simple as make the different types of fan a different but a consistent colour, so that you know that a grey fan is a background object, a blue fan can be landed on, and a red fan will cause you damage. And that sort of thing is the main issue with Sonic Spectre across the board. The artwork is incredibly detailed and impressive, but it can be a detriment to the actual game itself because it's so difficult to read. Background and foreground elements need to contrast more so it's easy to tell which is which. I appreciate that tweaking all this artwork to accommodate that would be a big task when 6 full stages are already complete, but I think that's the major issue Sonic Spectre has. Changing this would take it from being a good game to a genuinely great game, and maybe an original soundtrack too, but that's a minor issue. I just think an original soundtrack would pair nicely with all the custom artwork to make this feel like a wholly original game. Other than that, I really like everything else that's here. It plays great, the stage designs are awesome, the stages only last a couple of minutes at most, and the bosses are frequently spectacular. I'd still recommend that you try this, because there's a lot to play even in its current demo form, but be prepared to wrestle with some strange artwork choices that can make the game a little frustrating.